Major Spoilers podcast covers news, reviews, and of course, spoilers, and goes into details about the topics discussed. So if you haven't read, listened, or watched the items we talk about, you might want to come back later.
I'm Matthew.
I'm Rodrigo.
And I'm Steven, and you're listening to the Major Spoilers podcast, the podcast for pop culture and comic fans.
In this issue, Battle of the Podcasts, MSP Force, the Fat Man, El Rey de los Conejos, the moderator, and watching them from Center Neptune, their computerized coordinator, Steven Zark Steven, watching Warning Against Surprise Attacks from Alien Galaxies Beyond Space, whatever that means, bringing you the news, the reviews, the pop culture, and so Gary Owens impersonations, the mass of five, but acting as one, dedicated, inseparable, invincible, and on the internet.
Welcome to issue 1129 of the Major Spoilers podcast. Thank you for downloading and checking us out this week. Hey, listen, we had a fascinating to me, conversation about young children driving cars, the differences between Gen X and millennials and the kids of today, and some of the just some of the things that happened that are very different. Like if I said a 14-year-old drives a car, people on the internet flip the heck out. Back then, not such a big deal. You can find out about that conversation, and you can listen to it in its entirety if you head over to our Patreon page, patreon.com/Major Spoilers. It's the Major Spoilers podcast pre-show. You get that as part of your monthly subscription at the silver level or higher. But listen, if you don't want to pay for something, we also released this week our latest book club episode where we read The Twisted Ones by T. Kingfisher, and it's a good horror story. Brad and I have thoughts. That is completely free. Just point your browser to patreon.com/Major Spoilers. You can listen to Brad and I discuss the book. You can head over to our Discord server, and you can join our book club channel, and you can find out about the books that we are reading in June, July, and August. It's all part of the greater Major Spoilers experience, and we are glad that you are here with us this week, because later in the show, we're going to do Battle of the Planets. But right now, let's do a review. Matthew, you had a chance to read Ghost Rider versus Galactus, which is out this week. It's from Marvel Comics. Why don't you share a little bit of thoughts on this one?
Certainly. Now, there are some comics that you pick up and you want to read because this is a fascinating premise. And there are some comics that you pick up and that you read because this is a ridiculous premise. And sometimes, just sometimes, there are comics that you look at and go, why do you exist? And that's kind of where I was when I decided that I wanted to read Ghost Rider versus Galactus. Now, I'm going to be 100% straight with you. I picked this book up. I said, I'm going to read this. And only then did I notice the writing credit by J. Michael Straczynski. And the art, of course, is done. The art is not the same thing, but the art is different, by JUAN FERREYRA. $4.99 from Marvel Comics. Now, here's the thing you need to know. The idea of Ghost Rider being on the same scale, I guess. I don't know how you would even look at it, but the idea of Ghost Rider being on the same scale as a Galactus character, to me, honestly, is ridiculous. But the latest Ghost Rider is also one of Marvel's big, giant, cosmic characters. I don't know if you guys heard this. He can drive anything. Like, whatever it is, he can drive it. At one point, the Ghost Rider literally was attacked by Venom, right? And he's like, oh, well, I know what to do here. I'm just going to drive Venom. And he grabs Venom, right? And he drives him, and Venom turns into a Dodge Charger for reasons which remain obscure. And so, Ghost Rider now, cosmic character. The first thing I want to tell you, the art on this book is phenomenal. It is really, really good. And it kind of reminds me of a little Ed McGuinness and a little Ron Lim. But also, you have that question in the back of your head of, is a little Ed McGuinness and a little Ron Lim with some interesting coloring, is that something that's going to look really good with Ghost Rider? And yes, the answer is, oh my God, yes. So Ghost Rider in this issue does suffer from the same issue that Ghost Rider has had for quite a few years, that they're calling him Johnny Blaze, but they're giving us Danny Ketch. Danny Ketch, of course, had the penance stare. Danny Ketch had the chains of fire. Danny Ketch did his whole, thing in space, whatever he needed to do. I don't think Danny Ketch became the cosmic Ghost Rider, but he had a power that was more like overtly, hey, here I am, and I'm doing, all sorts of crazy, crazy mystical stuff. And also there's a ghost involved. So at a certain point in this issue, we see Ghost Rider actually get an upgrade. I'm not going to tell you how. It's actually pretty cool. But he gets an upgrade to where he, too, like Galactus, is a 40-foot tall space guy with, giant antlers coming out of his head. So at that point, I say to myself, is this even a Ghost Rider story anymore? And the answer is yes, with a big question mark, because that basic problem, the question that I had when I looked at the cover, is still there. It's that question of scale. And thankfully, this comic, which features repeated appearances by Ben Grimm, which I appreciate, which features a lot of, interesting moments, and one cosmic Marvel player who I have missed in recent years making a big appearance and maybe being part of how Ghost Rider powers up, not telling you. But it's one of those stories that shouldn't work. It should not work. Everything about it just feels like what I expect a Straczynski story to be, which is, something that's like, okay, how did this happen? Well, somehow Palpatine came back. Now, I know he didn't write that. Please don't yell at me. But it's kind of that expectation of when these things happen in the books, they just happen and you move on. This story avoids that. It does give us a reason why things happen. Most importantly, it explains, to me at least, it explains what Galen of Ta, final survivor of the last universe, and dirtbag biker Johnny Blaze, who grew up in the carnival, actually have in common. And that, I think, may be the greatest gift of all. Here's the thing that you need to know. Ghost Rider versus Galactus is not as ridiculous as I thought it was going to be. It is very well written. It is incredibly well drawn. And there are two big surprises in here that I think are going to delight both your new school Marvel fans, the people who are like, hey, I saw this Ghost Rider guy on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. 10 years ago, and people who have no idea who Galactus is. I think you're both going to enjoy this comic. 4 slices of meatloaf for Ghost Rider versus Galactus #1. Michael Straczynski, good script. It's a good story. Very happy to see that. And it does make this, sort of what happens if Howard the Duck punches Cthulhu story work. Not just work, but make sense. So, yeah, definitely worth checking out. 4 slices of meatloaf for your Ghost Rider versus Galactus #1.
There you go. All right. Coming out this week from Boom Studios, it is Be Not Afraid #1 from Jude Ellison S. Doyle and Lissandro S. Theron. This is an interesting book in that it touches on what if you or a woman has given birth to the Antichrist or a demon or something like that, or if you are someone who's in the Lovecraftian realm, the Dunwich horror with Wilbur Whateley and all of that stuff. It also is dependent on how you view the Nephilim. So this is a story about a woman who, isolated in the farm, and one day she had this vision that she was going to have a child, and this thing came to her. It looks like an angel in the book, made of pure light, and they get it on, and she's impregnated, and she has a perfect little child, a Nephilim. And so that's where I guess the crux of this evolves is, in your religious viewpoint, are the Nephilim the product of human and angels, the product of descendants of Seth and Cain, or are these the offspring of the fallen angels and humans? Because depending on how you view that, Nephilim can be thought of in a different way. Flash forward to 17 years later, and now this child is no longer cute and evil, but older and evil. And everywhere he walks, bad things happen. He walks down the street and frogs just explode. He goes up to people and basically tells them to do things, and they do it against their will. Like, oh, you should gnaw off your hand just because I want to see if your bones look like chicken bones, kind of thing. So it's creepy, right? And of course, the woman, Cora, is just distraught that she has allowed this child to live for 17 years. And so she pleads to whoever, the higher being, please help me do something. And then the something shows up and says, I'm here to help you kill your son before he turns 18 and becomes, I don't know, the Antichrist.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting premise. It's one that I think has been done before, or at least, there's the Omen, there's, Children of the Corn, there's, just all these demon children kind of thing stories. As I mentioned before, the Dunwich Horror. Mm-hmm. And so I think that that's an interesting premise, but one that I don't know, it kind of stretches my interest, probably to the breaking point. And I don't know. There is a huge religious aspect to this that, if you want to just go in and read a horror story and you're willing to believe that angels or demons or whoever got it on with humans, then, that's fine. But it may be also heretical to your religion too. So you might want to be careful about that. Sure. And so I thought the story was, in this opening chapter, somewhat mid, to use a word that the young kids use today. I found it kind of just, I've seen all this before. I think the thing that becomes more interesting is that the mother is begging a higher power to do something about it. And then something shows up that probably is not God, is probably not Archangel Michael or any of that. Certainly not a biblically accurate representation of any of the angels in this comic, to say, let's kill your kid. And what her reaction is going to be of, this is what you wished for. Now it's going to come true again. And what kind of death and destruction is going to follow. I'm kind of interested to see what they do after, but this first issue really wasn't a huge grabber for me. The art, the SRN is fine as an artist. I don't care for the style. That's my personal preference. Nothing against the artist, who is very talented. But I just didn't care for that particular style of sketchy, few details kind of art in the comic. But it's fine. The story is fine. The art is fine. The premise is fine, which is probably why I'm giving this 2.5 slices of meatloaf out of 5. I was maybe hoping for something a little bit more, a little bit scarier, a little bit more intense, and I didn't get that. And so that's why I'm giving this kind of this mid range rating, in that there's nothing horrible about it. There's also nothing great about it. It's just a comic that I hope by the next couple of chapters gets much, much better. So that's my thoughts on Be Not Afraid #1, out this week from Boom Studios. Let's jump ahead, Rodrigo, and let's see what's going on I don't know who this publisher is. Blue Palo Verde, #1.
Oh, let me check real quick. So Blue Palo Verde was a name for a comic that immediately grabbed me.
Is this Mad Cave
because
Studios?
I think it is Mad Cave.
Okay.
Because it means blue-green stick.
Okay.
Which is weird. Or
like
blue-green wood. Yes, there are Palo Verde trees and there are blue Palo Verde trees. So, yes, a blue Palo Verde is a kind of tree, something that I found out in the process of, finding the solicitation for this and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably what that city in California is named after. And because I went and I was looking for all the green sticks and I couldn't find them. I feel like that's a very Matthew joke. Sorry.
It is. I appreciate it. Yeah. Wait, what do you mean sorry?
No. I mean, sorry to sorry to
sorry, audience.
foreign on your
yeah.
No,
okay.
That's not what I was saying. Oh my God. Okay.
See,
Blue Palo Verde is a story of a young woman who gets out of jail and then goes to find her father, who was supposed to have come and picked her up, but he is nowhere to be found. We get a little bit of a taste of what their relationship might have been like, that they ended in like very bad terms before she got thrown in jail. And she goes and she finds them in this like town in the Southwest that is very weird. It's just like its vibe is off, and then stuff happens, and you can tell that the vibe is really off. I originally rated this one lower. I'm gonna give it 4 slices of meatloaf, because I felt that it was like too slow. It doesn't give us enough. But I read this yesterday, and I've been thinking about it all day today. So I'm like, well, clearly there's something there, right? It's written by Ray Fox. The artist is Romanti. I'm not familiar with this artist, but I really like their art. It's like very, it's like solidly comic book art, but it is like realistic and proportional, and all of the characters, like faces and emotions and everything, are very clear body language. It's just like go back and look through the pages. Main character has tattoos. The tattoos look really good. That's hard to do a lot of the time unless you're doing like just like really thick, more like cartoony tattoos or whatever. But these look really good. But yeah, so I was like, this is kind of not my thing, and I put it away. Like, I read this last night, and then this morning I woke up and I was like thinking about it. I was like, well, that's already the weirdness of this town is like getting into my brain, which is probably bad if I was a character in this comic. So yeah, I'm very interested in it. I kind of need to find out what happens next. I want to see if they explore her relationship with her dad. And I want them to go back and you know how the second time you watch Get Out, you notice all the stuff that she was doing.
Yes.
Just this issue, going back, there's at least one character where I'm like, wait a minute, is this character in on it? So I need to get farther into the story so I can ascertain whether that character is in on it or if they were like just kind of innocently guiding the character towards something dangerous. So 4 slices of meatloaf, Blue Palo Verde. Check it out.
All right, very cool. Thank you for those reviews, and listeners, you can find even more reviews over at majorspoilers.com. Thanks to everyone who supports this show and all the shows on the Major Spoilers Podcast Network. As I mentioned earlier, with your silver level membership, a mere $5 a month, you get access to the Major Spoilers Podcast pre-show, up to 4 episodes per week, so 4 bonus episodes. I mentioned the Major Spoilers Book Club. We also have a bunch of other stuff that goes on at higher levels, but $5, that is the sweet spot to get the best. Yeah, in this economy, that's great. What else can you get for less than $5? Not a whole lot. And that's why you should head over to patreon.com/major spoilers today.
I would slap you for less than $5.
This went over to Blue Sky earlier this week, and I asked the question, which Spider-Man foe would be a good foil for Batman? Which Spider-Man foe would be a good foil for Batman? Rodrigo Lopez.
Oh, that is a good question because Spider-Man is a lot more liberal about having superpowered foes. Like a good chunk of Batman's villains don't have superpowers. So, I'm gonna say actually, I think something like Madam Web would be good. I think
Ooh,
a character
interesting.
that knows more than Batman is
Oh, okay.
interesting when Batman interacts with them. A lot of the time, Batman's the guy who knows the most and is most in control and
Mhm.
everything, and a character who takes that control away from him, maybe not in a completely antagonistic way,
Yeah.
but where he's like, she's like, okay, we're in a different place now, and there's nothing you can do about it, so you have to like listen. I think that would be interesting to see where their sort of their goals align and their MOs.
Okay. Matthew, what about you? Which Spider-Man foe would be a good foil for Batman?
In modern parlance, I feel like the real test of a Batman villain is, do you believe that they have a real life mental illness? And honestly, the first answer that pops into my mind is, of course, Spider-Man's greatest villain, his greatest foe, the man who tried to marry his mommy. That's not a joke, although she's not literally his mommy. And a man who would fit in Gotham City, a genius who was maltreated. Everybody made fun of him. They called him Dr. Octopus behind his back. He accidentally messed up his mind, messed up his powers, gave himself a weird kind of freaky deaky extra set of arms. You could see Dr. Octopus with his background as a crime lord in New York really being a nice foil for, like, you get your Black Mask and your Dr. Octopus and your Penguin fighting for turf in Gotham City.
Mm-hmm.
And Ock is powerful enough to give Batman a run for his money in like a Killer Croc sort of blockbuster sort of way, but not so powerful. Like, for me, the Rhino would be too much juice. And somebody like the Green Goblin, honestly, modern Green Goblin feels too much like the Joker to be any fun. But
Yeah.
Dr. Octopus has a lot of cool elements that you see bits and pieces of in Gotham. And it would be fun to see, Ock maybe team up with the Penguin and have the two fat guys kind of maybe want to bond and then hate each other and then end up being even worse foes than they ever were before. I think that Dr. Octopus is my call, at least.
Yeah. That's not bad. I don't think anybody responded with Dr. Octopus. My first thought was, I like Batman who is the Hell's Kitchen kind of crime fighter, right? Not the big, blustery, jump out there, Dick Spring, giant typewriter kind of guy. So for me, I think it would be like Kingpin, I think would be the best foil for Batman. That's more along the lines of your Penguin, but somebody who has giant fists and can beat the crap out of you, kind of guy too. So that's who I would go with. But I do like the idea of Dr. Octopus. Did either of you guys watch Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man yet?
I watched some of it.
I think I've
when
seen
Doc Ock turns, when Doc Ock turns in that show, it's great. And so I would encourage you guys to watch that if you haven't seen it. His escape from the authorities is just brilliantly executed, both as he planned for it all along, but also it's a song and dance number.
Yeah.
It's really, really
and
good.
I don't know if you guys played Insomniac's Spider-Man all the way to the end.
Oh,
Nope.
yeah, sure.
Where he and Ock have that big fight down the side of the Oscorp building. That just to me felt like, oh my God, these guys are totally doing like a Gotham Knights, all the Batman video games riff, but doing it completely different because it's Spider-Man. And I'm just like, yeah, that's good. I like that. Yeah, weird guy. Hey, I'm Dr. Octopus.
Yeah.
And you could have him look like Alfred Molina.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think enemies that have or characters that have like flexible powers, that is like literally, that's characters that can stretch and flex and do stuff, like give you a ton of opportunities for action. And I think that just hit everyone like a truck when Spider-Man 2 came out.
Yeah.
Like, I think people were going in and I think some people were like, well, Dr. Octopus is kind of a goofy character, right? It's like, and that's fair if you think that. He, if you look at the original concepts for Dr. Octopus, it's not, he's not like, he's kind of like a mole man looking character, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, well, that guy's not that scary. And then you put you just like sit Sam Raimi at the console, and all of a sudden you're like zipping around, and there's all of these like monster tentacles coming at you, and the way that he like runs across the city and climbs up buildings and stuff, and you're like, oh, there's a lot here, which makes me hopeful for the new Fantastic Four that they're going to do some interesting stuff with Mr. Fantastic.
Right.
So we'll see how that goes.
Here are a few of the replies that I got to my question. Jamin said Chameleon would be a good foil.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
That's a good one.
Peter said Green Goblin is basically Batman who got Jokerized. So you were kind of on that right track earlier, Matthew, when you said Green Goblin is basically Joker, but he's saying,
sure,
what if Batman was Jokerized? Embrace Your Geekness said Craven the Hunter. That might be really interesting. And I think maybe the closest would be maybe KG Beast, right? Who hunts Batman, maybe? Or maybe Bane?
Yeah. I would say Bane. But yeah, there aren't like jungly, huntery kind of, the world's most dangerous game guys that naturally fit, at least at the top. Maybe 90s Catman.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
I could definitely see Craven and Batman being one hell of a crossover.
Yeah. Greg said Punisher. Chris said Mr. Negative, maybe. And then Jay said Mysterio.
Mysterio would be, my God.
Mysterio would be a great Batman villain because he already has one, and that's the Scarecrow.
Yeah.
But can you imagine?
Would be different. It would be different. Yeah, it would.
Mysterio shows up in Gotham. Scarecrow is mad. Yeah. Joker is mad. Catwoman is like, who is this guy with the bubble head? Why are there no fish in there? I want fish because she's Catwoman. I'm just saying, that would be. There's a moment in Ultimate Spider-Man where we find out that Prime Mysterio has been showing up on Ultimate Marvel Earth.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, in like 2007, 2006. And it's this huge moment, and it hits like a thunderbolt because of, the compactness of the storytelling in the Ultimate Universe. And then this Cretan comes in from another reality, right? I could see that being in a Batman story. If Marvel and DC really wanted to commit, you're in a detective comic story, and they're like, who could it be? Robin, who could it be? And Damien is like, I don't know. It could be this guy. It could be that guy. They go down the suspects, and then they both get mowed down, and in walks Quentin Beck with a fishbowl on his head going, you never saw that coming, did you?
I think a lot of this
is that.
Go ahead.
Is that why Mysteria's like cover in Far From Home is that he's a guy from another dimension?
I mean, that's the story that he makes up because the multiverse has already been unveiled.
It is. But do you think that the point was that people who have read Ultimate Spider-Man were like, oh, maybe he is from another dimension?
I think it probably was.
Mysterio has been from another dimension before.
And so much of the Marvel 199999 universe is based more on Ultimate Marvel than Prime Marvel. Sure. It's absolutely a reference, and I think that's a really smart catch.
Yeah. All of that came from, I think, the announcement from last week or 2 weeks ago that Batman and Deadpool are teaming up in a big Marvel DC crossover event.
Mysterio is the only member of either Rogues Gallery who has ever held the AAA Luchador World Title.
Oh,
so that's important.
Yeah. Also, Matthew said Robin. He said Tim Drake. He said not Tim Drake. He said Damian Wayne with Robin. Rodrigo, when you hear Robin, who is the character that you think of as Robin?
Character that I think of as
for
Robin.
Me, it's Tim Drake. Never will you get me to say anyone other than Tim Drake.
Yeah, for me, I think it's always Dick Grayson. Like I just always reset Batman to that like Batman, the animated series thing. So it's like I think of Batman and Robin as like Batman and like teenage Dick Grayson.
Okay, very cool.
For me, it's always Jason. Because
really?
when I started reading comics, Dick had just become Nightwing.
Sure.
And Marv Wolfman was like, you're the leader of the Teen Titans. You're a man now. You're 21. You're off doing your own thing. And Jason Todd shows up and he's like, "Hi, I don't have any character yet.
You want to buy some wheels for your Batmobile?
That's it.
I can get you a good deal on them."
This is even before that. This is the point where he was just literally a cipher. He was just this kid who looked and acted like Dick. And he's like, "Hi, I'm just like Dick. How are you?" They didn't give him that cool until after the Crisis. And then they're like, "We're just going to make him edgy."
Yep. And we all saw how that turned out. Okay.
Well, I voted to kill him. I don't know about you guys.
If you guys have other thoughts, comments, reactions to this, obviously you can follow me over on Blue Sky, Major Spoilers. I'm that way on almost every social media out there. So you can just look for Major Spoilers and you'll find me there. But really head over to our Discord server and jump into the podcast channel or the comic book channel or one of the other channels and share your thoughts, reactions on who would make the best foil from a Spider-Man foe. It's completely free to join, and we hope to see more of you in the coming weeks. This week, we took a look at Gatchaman, Volume 1. This is Cullen Bunn and Chris Batista teaming up together for this Mad Cave Studios series. And this is basically picking up right from the original Japanese series, not the American with Seven Sark 7, because, my God, what a horrible character Seven Sark 7 is. And spun off all the horrible things with Power Rangers and the rest. But we have
they're putting Robbie in the new Fantastic Four, so someday we might see a reappropriation of Seven Sark 7.
Yeah, we might. God, I hope not. But we have Galactus trying to be eco-terrorists in the world, and it is up to the Science Ninja Team Gatchaman to stop them. And of course, this, if you are, again, Rodrigo, you may have been able to watch Battle of the Planets in Mexico as a kid.
I did.
This was definitely something that if you were a Gen X kid, that you probably saw this after school, Monday through Friday, on your local, cartoon after school channel, whatever that may have been. For me, it was Channel 41. And so it's cool to, this series obviously is diving deep onto nostalgia as its drive to get people to read it.
But it's a weird kind of nostalgia because it's, at least for people our age who grew up with the American adaptation, the plots were similar and the characters held sort of the same archetypical spaces. But the actual interactions and the things that happened in Gatchaman versus, Battle of the Planets, part of the reason Zark existed was because they had to cut so much of the plot for violence or adult themes or things that they weren't comfortable with, a 10-year-old seeing.
Oh, yeah. If you can get the original Gatchaman series,
you can.
In its raw form. They sold it on DVD like 15 years ago. I'm pretty sure you can find that on your Crunchyrolls or on your Apple TV, something or others. I'm sure easy access to the original versions can be found, and they are quite a bit different from what we saw as kids. It is definitely watered down. I guess I didn't really realize as a kid that every episode was basically eco-terrorists trying to destroy the world for its resources. And only by watching the unedited ones, I was like, oh, so this is what this is about. Okay.
Yeah. And
cool.
that explains their weird theming. Like the space terrapin, they're actually literally trying to get you to think about, hey, what about the poor turtles?
Yeah.
And I think that the best part about this is how they managed to maintain enough of the stuff that I know, the stuff that you and I know from being, God help us, 53, 54, and remembering the Battle of the Planets, as opposed to, what happens in Gatchaman. That is the real test here, is making it appeal to us, even though it isn't the thing that we knew or thought we knew that we knew we thought. However that sentence began.
So I'm curious then, Matthew, what is the thing that surprised you most about reading this volume compared to your knowledge from your childhood?
Batista's art, how the oh so 70s vibe and the character designs and the bell bottoms and the stripy jeans.
Yeah.
And how they managed to keep all that. They managed to take it, but they also make it feel like a modern story. This is clearly the year 20. And, Dr. Nambu is doing his Nambu-y thing. And they're all kind of, I always look at Dr. Nambu and I see like the priest from Little House on the Prairie, but that's just me. And throughout this whole thing, the real surprise is the way they managed to keep these flashback designs, these throwback things from 1973, but also make them work. Because at a certain point, we have, a plot line with this evil murderer who works for Galactor, who, by the way, dresses like Jacqueline Onassis for some reason in a cloche hat and a pink suit. And I'm like, why are you
talking
doing
about
this?
the sisters?
Yeah. That I think is the best part. And of course, the facial designs were so when we, and by we, again, I'm saying Stephen and I, when we talk about quote unquote anime faces, what we mean are the anime faces of Gatchaman and similar things with the big eyes and the small mouth, and Princess has the pointy chin, and nobody knows what species Kiop is. I'm sorry, Jinpei. But that all of that works, and they manage to keep a realistic style without realistic faces, without modern designs, without modern clothing. And it's just, the fact that this holds together visually is like a literal miracle to me.
Rodrigo, what about you? What was the thing that stood out for you about reading this, and then based on your knowledge of Battle of the Planets when you were a young child?
Yeah, the thing that stood up to me the most. So I did watch Gatchaman when I was a kid in Mexico. It was not edited because I remember it being very violent.
You probably watched the original version.
Yeah, it was called Fuerza G. So G-Force.
Oh,
got it. Nice.
So the thing that grabbed me the most about this, that surprised me the most, is that Galactor has like multiple distinct factions within it. When like the Dark Stars or whatever, I forget their names, when they show up, I'm like, and then there's also those other guys that look like the Gatchaman team, except they're all like in black, but they also have like bird hats and capes.
Oh, the Beta team.
No.
I know
like
which one you're talking
the Galactor,
about.
like
the Galactor,
the bad, like the dark birds or whatever.
Yes. I know who you're talking about.
I forgot all their names, even though it's the part that I found most interesting. And I'm like, I kind of want a series that is just the internal politics of Galactor, right? Because it's completely up and down, homicidal maniacs all the way down, right?
Right.
So obviously, like, they're all vying for power. They're all trying to like simultaneously outdo and sabotage each other. And already we've seen two groups, three if you count the guy with like the Smilodon head that's driving the plant. So yeah, it's like we actually get to see like three distinct factions plus Berg Katza and his like little
and his all-girl orchestra.
Yeah. And his weird little boss who's just like a Kilroy.
Yeah.
And so we see a lot of Galactor in this, more than I think I've seen in other adaptations and or treatments of it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, this is actually very interesting. Like, I would love, and so I started thinking about it. Like, I would love a series in which the first thing that happens is that Galactor actually takes over, like just completely takes over Japan or the United States or wherever. And they put one of those crews in charge of a major city, and G-Force has to like basically free Chicago and New York or like Tokyo and Osaka or whatever, one by one, while fighting these like different groups that have like different tactics and different things. Because to me, this was the most interesting thing. It's like a very varied enemy team.
Yeah.
So I was super interested in it.
So there were two things that popped out to me. Before I get to that, though, Rodrigo, there is a Gatchaman Galactor miniseries where Galactor is under siege by a threat from within. And so Burj Costa has to go not necessarily undercover, but root out who is behind all of this stuff. So you might want to check that out. That came out in February of this year.
Okay.
We probably got it in our archive somewhere that you can find, or I can.
By the way, shout out to Fabian Berg. Katze is German for mountain cat.
There you go.
Oh, nice.
Which I'm just like, yeah. Why? Why do I know that? I don't know. Why is it funny to me? I don't know. But I want to.
Why did they name them that? Who knows?
Gratuitous German. There's a lot of gratuitous.
I mean, there's a lot. Well, there's a lot of German stuff in Japanese anime that is sometimes a little weird. But there you go. So here are the things that stood out for me. Number one, that it's just expected that G-Force is going to all die, that they're all going to die, and that there are teams that are just ready to step in and take their place. And poor Mark is like, I know you're going to take my spot someday, but not today. And it's just like, okay, that's like a major plot point where the beta team is like, put us in, coach. And coach is like, no, sit down. I do what I tell you to do. And it's just like, that was something that I'm going to guess is new for the comic book series, because it does give more team. It does. Honestly, this whole thing.
It like doubles the cast.
Yeah. It also kind of gives it a G.I. Joe feel. Right, where you were talking about how you have all these different factions of Galactor. You have the same thing with Cobra, and with G.I. Joe, you have more and more people that are always being added on with their specialties, etc. So that was the first thing, and it's just like the head guy is just like, yeah, no, you guys are going to die, and we're going to replace you, and that's the way it works. And I'm just like, okay, enjoy your life, teenagers.
Well, I've said it before. I hate the whole it's teenage. These are just child soldiers. I hate when people say that, because it doesn't mean anything. When you just say, "Oh, the X-Men are just child soldiers. The Power Rangers are just child soldiers." Okay, now tell me, what does that tell you? What does that mean to you? And this story makes that mean something, because Dr. Nambu has literal child soldiers, and if they die, he's got another one backed up, ready to take over. That is creepy. That is creepy and probably evil, but also great.
I guess to an extent. I mean, I don't have a problem. Anytime you have kids as the heroes, it's power fantasy for kids, so I don't have a problem with that. And if you're trying to ascribe something more sinister to that, I don't really buy into that.
Well,
but I get it.
The problem, the problem is always that a lot of these franchises, right? A lot of these stories continue and evolve, so that eventually it's like, because the X-Men is not a funny book for kids anymore. It's because it's a huge thing. And then Xavier is a bad person who was keeping child soldiers.
Charles
right?
Xavier's a jerk.
It like, unfortunately, when you expand the universe and you bring in like more realism and more like more adult concepts, it starts to kind of warp the base a little bit. But G-Force is not there, because this is like the most earnest book I've ever read.
Oh yeah.
This is like
this is just
let's go.
Are we gonna turn on to God mode again and turn into the Phoenix? And it's like, okay. And it's like the next issue. Or are we gonna turn into the Phoenix again and punch through this thing? Yeah, let's do it. So there's a lot of that kind of repetition in there. But then that's what makes it fun, because that's what I remember as a kid. The other thing that I remember as a kid is that there was a whole series, or at least a week, it felt like, where Princess was undercover doing her undercover thing. Right? And so we do get a whole issue where Princess is doing her own undercover thing. The other thing that I remember about Princess from the Battle of the Planet series is we got a lot of panty shots of Princess in action. And that is one of the things that this book does not hold back on when it is her story to go in undercover and fight the sisters and rescue the scientists. And I was just like, wow. I mean, granted, there are lines that are not there that could have been there that I'm glad that they did hold back on. But I was just kind of surprised that, yeah, we're just leaning into the whole panty shot thing, because that's what I guess people expect when you're doing a Battle of the Planets comic book series.
And I think that's, it's another part of, we're holding on to that original aesthetic. We are keeping that part of it. But it's also a question of, if you're a woman and you're wearing this miniskirt costume and you're kicking and flipping, your skirt is going to move. And from my perspective, not, as someone who doesn't really care to see an 18-year-old girl's underwear on a regular basis, flipping, an 18-year-old girl should be going to school and taking her vitamins. But more importantly, if they had not done that, if they had spent all of their time, like when Supergirl had her cartoon costume, and they spent all the time making sure that the art didn't
like her
show
skirt was always ruffled.
Yeah, because she had like that little, when she had the baby tee and mini skirt from the Bruce Timm series, and she was doing this about 96. It was distracting the lengths they had to go to make that costume work and never show any, undergarments or whatever. And from my point of view, I feel like it works better based on the character's style and the costume and the fact that they maintain that design.
Yeah, had it not been the, hey, for everybody who remembers the cartoon series, you remember this stuff, we're throwing it in there. Had I not been aware, I probably would have been a little bit more offended by it.
I can see that.
Just because it's like, well, that's what we got in the cartoons. They're trying to pay homage to that series as much as they can into that, which I guess would include that stuff. Go ahead, Rodrigo, because then I have another follow-up that they're a little bit slavish to the original that is also a little off-putting.
It happens so often that I guess just in my brain, I just assumed they were Spanx.
Oh,
yeah.
They are. I'm sure she's wearing a unitard of some kind.
Because part of her costume is white, right? It's like, and she, so I just assumed that, she has like a leotard.
Yeah.
Like I just in my brain is like, she has a white leotard underneath and not, they're constantly showing me her like panties.
Yeah.
Right.
So I guess that's, my brain just naturally edited that, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, different times, I guess, but as a kid, it was always like, oh, you can see her underwear. In that. The other thing, and again, a little off-putting for me, is while everyone is in costume, man, you are on model. When they're out of costume, man, everything is on model, and man, are their faces as creepy as they were in the 1970s. And I think that's a little off-putting. I mean, literally the big bug eyes. I'm not against big eye, small mouth anime concepts, but here it's like weird. It's weird.
Junpei is super cartoony. Like his head does not belong in the art style with the big overbite and the little.
Just look at Mark or what's the other guy? Ken. Look at both of them when they have Ken their helmets on. Who's the other one? Who is
Joe?
Joe. Look at them when their helmets are off, and the hair and the eyes and everything just look really weird.
There's a very off-putting panel, and I'm not finding it, but it's when both the main team and the B team are together, and the main team is in their civilian clothes, and the B team is in their uniforms. And they look like they're from two completely different realities. Their faces aren't like each other. And because their civvies are like so brutally like 70s, which I love. I love, like, I saw that and I was like, oh yeah, I love the style of Gatchaman when they're like in their civilian clothes. They're so cool, right? It's like so retro and cool, but it's like you compare them to these like modern comic book characters, which is the B team, and you're like, this doesn't match.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that I found off-putting was that they were being so slavish to the original that it kind of falls apart in places because of that. Other than that, though, I do enjoy seeing all of the characters that I remember again growing up. I do enjoy seeing the looks. I do enjoy. I wish we would have seen a little bit more of the vehicles by themselves instead of everything on the God plane. But I mean, I like this book. It was good. It was better than I thought it would be. Now, again, it's Cullen Bunn. I think Cullen Bunn is a fantastic writer, so I've got a bias there. But this really did turn out to be more than I thought it would be, and I'm glad with that. Rodrigo, what are your negative thoughts on this series?
I got to about halfway through this series expecting for there to be some sort of twist, even a minor twist, right? It didn't have to be like, and secretly the Doctor is evil and you've been doing evil things and the bad guys are the good. Like, it didn't have to be that. It didn't have to be that, right? But this is, as I said before, an extremely earnest comic that is really, really very much just doing G-Force or doing Battle of the Planets or whatever. And I was like, okay, you know, like there was just kind of nothing here that stepped it up or changed it other than the B team, but because the B team is like purposefully so relegated, right? It's like, I was like, I know what's going to happen. They're going to kill off Mulder and Scully, and 2 new characters are going to come up, right?
That's kind of what I thought was going to happen too.
I thought they were going to kill them off, and this was going to be the launching point for like this new G-Force. And it wasn't. They're just like, okay, B team, thanks for, and they help. They totally help. But then everything goes back to normal. And so I got all the way to the end of the comic, and I was like, well, mostly I want to learn about the villains because honestly, the heroes are kind of boring. I already know these characters. Like, there's nothing. It doesn't feel like there's much that is new here.
Matthew, what did you not care for in this series?
I think that kind of sums it up. The main characters, plus, Dr. Anderson or Dr. Nambu, those characters are iconic to the point of maybe being inflexible. We talked a few weeks ago how the character of Jason is like that quintessential Lancer character. And even when they have something, I don't remember if the Blackbirds ever appeared in the cartoon. I think they did, because I think they're a riff on the Shocker writers from Kamen Rider. But if they didn't, and they're a new thing here, they are the most fascinating thing in this book to me. And they don't actually get any time. They don't really do much of nothing. And when they show up, they immediately kind of get their head caved in. And I'm like, there are a number of things that pop up here, like the factions within Galactor, like the girl with the weird head who wants to be princess after princess was her, because turnabout is fair play, I guess. But you have a lot of things that are in here that feel like they're introduced as part of the story, part of the universe, that don't get used to their full potential because we have those 5 main characters. And because we're doing a take on these guys as they existed in the Space Terrapin episode going forward, that maybe it's stuff that we're holding for the next arc or something that we're holding for another miniseries. But it really does feel like some of the best stuff that gets introduced doesn't really do anything.
Yeah, I don't. I know that there's still many more Gatchaman books that are released. There's a bunch of solo books for each of the main characters. As I said, there's the Galactor one, and I have forgotten whether Gatchaman is an ongoing or not. It seems like every so often I'm getting a new thing. I think this week there is a Gatchaman book in stores, so people can go.
The last time I checked, this series was like on issue 7 or 8.
Yeah, so I know that
arc is 1 through 5.
Yeah, I know that there is a new. I'm trying to see which one is out this week from Mad Cave. Scroll down. Mad Cave has Gatchaman: The Solo Adventures gets collected as a trade paperback this week. So yeah, there is that. Do you think, now this is going to be somewhat controversial, and I don't mean it to really be controversial. What do you think that they're going to do with Berg Katza? Especially when it comes to, in Japan, Zoltar, well, that's what it's called in America, is a trans character. And here in America, they were like, oh no, we can't have that in the 1970s. And so they kind of split the character into two when Katza is presenting as a woman that is Zoltar's twin sister, Zola. Right? Do you think that that's going to be addressed at all in this series, or are they just going to be just like, no way?
I think, and I'm putting an asterisk on this, I think that the Berg Katza character in Japan is intersex, and I think that while there are similarities, I feel like the difference there is that Berg Katza in the original series is both male and female, and they, however they feel that particular day, decides whether they put on their fabulous costume with the high boots or if they dress like a woman.
Yeah.
And
how much lipstick to wear, not
exactly
if they're going to wear lipstick.
Right. And I kind of like the idea of playing Berg Katza exactly the way that the original stories did, with the sole problem of this is a pretty high profile character who's going to be perceived as trans, and he's also the big bad. And they're the villain. They're the evil person who's trying to destroy the Earth. And I mean, even the Galactor series has given some humanity to that character, but it does bring up that question of, do you have characters who are LGBTQIA, who are not evil monsters wearing pointy hats who want to murder us all? And so,
yeah, it's an interesting, because it was something that never was, as a kid, never brought up until you get to the re-release of the original, and you're like, wait a minute, what? And then you go and you start reading, and you're like, oh, interesting. And then it becomes problematic, I think, for a lot of people, because they're maybe not willing and ready to deal with that.
It's like, no matter what, it's like very fraught, right? Because if you play it straight the way that, if you play it exactly the way that they were doing it in Japan, then now here is yet another like queer coded or just straight up queer villain, right? And that is something that is in itself problematic. This was coming out during the 70s, so back then that was actually more the norm than anything else. So you think, haha, I'm not gonna do that, I'm changing it, and now you have erased a legacy trans character, right? Like, like there's kind of no way to just completely win it. I mean, there might be, and Cullen Bunn's a good writer, so maybe he'll find it, but there's no easy way to be like, oh, well, we'll just play it this way, right?
Yeah. There is no simple answer, and I think to some degree, I remember this being not necessarily like a point of contention, but something that we knew about in the 70s, or at least, my particular friend group knew about. And it was one of those wacky Japanese, all Japanese cartoons or hentai kind of things. And so it was played as, see this weird, pervy thing that they put in the middle of our adventure cartoon. And also, that's not true either. The way the character is seen in those original stories, nothing about the gender swapping and the going back and forth is really played for laughs. It's just
no. It's just
this character. Yeah. This is an evil
but
character,
also
an evil woman sometimes, an evil dude sometimes.
But also in the original, Zoltar is also an alien. So
right. Are they supposed to, was there any indication that they were an alien here? Because again, I'm like, I seem to recall they were an alien, but by now I've seen so many versions of Gatchaman that I don't know if I picked that up somewhere else along the way.
Yeah.
In the original Battle of the Planets, Zoltar was an alien, and the Exalted One was an alien who wasn't human, so the magic mirror guy. But all of the mooks, the foot soldiers,
Yeah, those
were
are all
robots.
humans. Oh, they were
Those
robots.
They
Oh,
were robots because Jason kept blowing them up with his bird daggers. See, and so you're like, and Zark would tell us, "Oh, it's a good thing that they're all robots." And then his dog would fly across the room with its tail and kill a good 3 minutes. Yeah, a good 3 minutes was stupid, business because we don't have any way to edit this. Sandy Frank isn't paying for extra writers,
or extra
And so-
animators. So,
honestly, what they paid for in the orchestration is why we remember the show. Because the music of G-Force, Battle of the Planets, it's 100 times better than the music of Gatchaman. If I could have Gatchaman with I want to hear it in Japanese, so sub it in Japanese with the American score, then I could probably die a happy
sometimes you get that. Sometimes you get that elevation just because they happen to have like somebody who's like really good working to slap this together, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the kids' experience with it. We were watching something on YouTube and I pulled up the opening Battle of the Planet song and the sequence with Gary Owens yelling over the thing and that incredible swelling music. And they're like, okay, I want to watch this. And 10 minutes into the Space Terrapin, they're like, okay, I'm bored now.
Yeah.
I'm like, but there's more music.
What's the final thought on this, Matthew?
For me, rush right out in a buying frenzy, especially if you're old. If you're old, like Stephen and I, and you're like, I remember getting in trouble on the playground in the 6th grade for playing G-Force, and there were only 5 of them, so everybody had to be somebody. And they always made the fat kid drive the ship. Not that I, had a problem with that. Because, Tiny, I don't know if you know this, will rip your arms off and beat you to death with them.
He's
just
strong.
He is. He's superhumanly strong. They don't point this out very often.
Another thing that they didn't go into this here is that they're like cyborgs and mutants.
Yeah.
They didn't get into that here.
Ninja. No, they're not turtles. But I say, if you love Gatchaman or if you love Battle of the Planets, this is the best synthesis of the two that I've ever encountered. And I say that as someone who, God help me, in the 90s, I watched Eagle Riders just to try and catch a little bit of the high that I had when I was 7. And I swear they can keep the money. I just want my time back. So this book, buy it. It's good.
Rodrigo, thoughts from you?
I would say if you want like a very straightforward Gatchaman story, pick this up. There is some new stuff, but this new stuff doesn't make hard enough waves to really feel new. So if you're looking for an interesting new take on Gatchaman, this is not it. But definitely go get it if, for example, you've never heard of this series before. Like, this is actually probably a very good jumping on point.
Oh, yeah. Definitely if you are a Power Rangers type fan and you're looking for something Power Rangers adjacent, Gatchaman Volume 1 is probably a good place to start with this. As Matthew said, if you are nostalgia hungry for this, I think this is a good book that will hit all those nostalgia spots. If you are if you're somebody that has never seen this or heard of this, but you're looking for some fun kind of zany adventures with giant mech / animal parts fused together, fighting giant flying ships that catch on fire, go pick this up. I kind of wish, the one thing that I would say is I kind of wish that we had some more character development among all of the characters. I think the only one who really got any real character development was the leader of the beta team. And I kind of wanted to see more of that. I enjoyed this a great
June
deal.
a little bit because she like countermands orders.
That's true.
Yeah.
I did enjoy this book, and I think it is also worth checking out and picking up. So there you go. That's Gatchaman Volume 1 from Mad Cave Studios. There's a link to all the books that we reviewed in the show notes. That will take you to our Amazon affiliate link. Anything that you buy through that Amazon affiliate link, a little bit comes back to us, anywhere from 3 to 5%. So it's not a whole lot. If you buy this book for $17.99, we're getting maybe 50 cents out of it. So just kind of keep that in mind. The more you buy, the more we get, the happier you are, the more shows we can produce for you. And speaking of shows that we can produce for you, that's where we're going to have to wrap it up for this issue. Thank you so much for listening. Again, if you found value in the show, join us over on our Patreon page for even more fun. And until next time, when we talk about the Peanuts from 1950, remember, we know that you love comics and we do too. And we will talk with you soon.
If I had the X-ray vision of a Superman, I could save a few bucks and stand around and read through the covers of the comics on the stand. But although every other page would be backwards, I suppose I could still read the evens and the odds. Well, I don't know. Guess I haven't thought this all the way through. Plus, as soon as the comic book store guy knew, he kicked my butt out on the corner. What a major spoiler! What a major spoiler! Think about a better way. If I was hulking green or gray, I could just bust through that brick wall, take their comic books away. But then the little meat would deal with all the tanks and bombs and guns. Have you ever tried to read a series with all that going on? Guess I need to rethink this plan. How would I back and board my comics with such huge hands? Guess I already told ya. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. If I'm Stark Raven, rich like a man of iron, I might not be surprised to find that I might actually have the heart cold to follow an entire storyline. But would I really even need to read up on all those escapades? I mean, who needs such distractions when your sister's such a babe? But the downside is such a beast. Being shot up in a fun bee in the Middle East with a gang sign throwing soldier. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What a major spoiler. Whoa, 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 whoa. What a major spoiler.
This podcast is copyright 2025 by Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC.